What is going on, everybody? It is Wednesday, February the 24th, and that means it's time for another episode of My News Radar. Here is your reminder that this channel is community supported. If you want to help support this channel, consider hitting that join button down below or consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Thanks. For me, one of the more interesting things that Microsoft has done in the last couple of years is to begin to use some Ryzen processors on some of their Surface devices. In fact, we already have gotten the Surface Laptop 3, which did in fact run what they call the AMD Ryzen 5 Microsoft Surface Edition. And if you scroll down here, you'll see the model number of 3580UXX. And this was a pretty decent little system on a chip. Geekbench here has scores, single core score being about 720 and multi-core score being about 26, 27. But it looks like the Surface Laptop 4, which will also be sporting a Ryzen option, is going to be quite a bit more powerful. In fact, we have an article here from MS Power User talking about a leak for the Surface Laptop 4 running AMD Ryzen 5 processor, and they got this leak via Geekbench. So this new laptop 4 will be running the 3580U. It will have 8 gigs of DDR4 RAM. We don't know if that 8 gig is a variant, if you could do more or maybe less. Hopefully not too much less. 4 gig is something they've done in the past, but 8 gig in this particular, looks like this thing will run at 2.2 gigahertz. And when we run the actual benchmark, you jump up to a 1063 and a 5726. Again, this is a pretty massive increase, not just in single core, but in multi-core performance. Personally, I've always thought that these Surface laptops looked really nice. I love their clean aesthetic. And I've really been interested in Ryzen processors. We just actually upgraded my wife Jessie's computer, which is a Ryzen build, to a newer Ryzen 5. So we have dabbled with some Ryzen chips in this household. So I'm really interested to see how this Surface Laptop 4 is going to run with a pretty considerable increase in performance from the Surface Laptop 3 going to this newer version of the Ryzen 5. Have any of you guys out there purchased a Surface laptop with that Ryzen chip? If you have, let me know in the comments down below. What was your real world performance like? Because sometimes we get caught up in Geekbench scores and things like that. And, you know, real life isn't based on these sorts of numbers. You can gather a lot of information from it. But at the end of the day, what's the real world performance like? I'd love to hear from you guys about this in the comments. Jumping over to the smartphone world, we have a couple of quick Google stories. So obviously in the last year, Google launched the Pixel 4a, which was a good, cheap smartphone. They launched the Pixel 4a 5G, which added a wide-angle lens and a much larger screen. And they launched the Pixel 5, which added a metal body, a 90 hertz refresh rate, and some other added features there, all of which ran a more mid-range 7 series Snapdragon. Well, now we have rumors that they're about to launch a Pixel 5a, which, according to the leaked renders here, looks pretty much exactly like the 4a 5G or the Pixel 5 did, other than the fact that it will be plastic, more like the 4a 5G. So this phone is apparently going to feature stereo speakers, a 6.2-inch display, which is a little bit bigger than the 4A was, and it will be made of plastic instead of that metal. For following the same design language, we should be looking at a standard and a wide-angle lens. You've got the same hole punch cutout in the front of the screen. The power button does look a little bit different, but we are retaining the rear-mounted fingerprint reader, which is something that I'm actually fine with. It'd be really interesting to see what price point the 5A will launch at. Considering that the Pixel 3a was $400, the 4a was $350, you know, something in that range is something closer to what I would be expecting. 400 or less. If they can still squeeze a 90 hertz refresh rate into this thing with the mid-range chip, with great cameras and potentially a big battery offering some really nice battery life, the Pixel 5a might be another winner from Google. Sticking with Google, though, we do know that they've been working on a folding phone design, and we have a little bit more to talk about in terms of what they're going to be offering. There are rumors now that Google is going to be unveiling a foldable Pixel smartphone later this year at its annual Made by Google event. As mentioned from Android headlines here, we've seen some documents that showed off a foldable with the codename Passport, set to be released in 2021. We are also seeing reports now, both from Android headlines and from 9to5 Google, that Google has requested that Samsung develop a display with a folding OLED 7.6 inches in size for this Passport device. Basically, all signs are pointing towards an announcement very imminently and a release in 2021. I'm actually really stoked to see a Google Pixel that can fold like a Z Fold type device, because I'm a big fan of the Pixel devices. I'm really curious to see what this thing will cost and what kind of weird Google-centric software they're going to squeeze in there like they have in their Pixel devices in the past. Obviously, the Z Fold always launches around $2,000, and I'm hopeful that Google, with what they've been doing lately, will maybe drop this thing down a bit. I would actually really like to see this thing, call me crazy, but launch with a mid-range chip and keep that price as low as they can keep it. Make a foldable for the rest of us, people that don't want to spend $2,000. Hopefully, we won't have to wait too much longer to find out what's coming next. And speaking of Samsung's foldable devices, they've got a really interesting deal going right now, where if you purchase either a Z Fold or a Z Flip, you have 100 days to try that device out before you're unable to return it. They've extended this return window from 15 days to 100 days, which honestly is a pretty tempting deal to be able to buy this thing and try it out for over 3 months to determine if this phone is for you or not. They said, quote, "The new initiative will help consumers try and see if a foldable device is right for them as part of Samsung's commitment to making foldable devices more accessible for everyone." I think this is really forward thinking and really intelligent, because so many people have seen these folding devices on the internet, but very few of them have seen them in person, and even fewer have had a chance to use them. So extending this period, some people that have been on the fence maybe will jump over that fence now and purchase a Z Fold 2 and think, I can use this thing for the next 90 days plus 3 months plus, and then decide if I want to keep it or not. This is also very likely a ploy to reduce inventory as we prepare for the next Z Flip and the Z Fold 3, which should be launching later on this year as well, with stylus support and all sorts of fun things in tow. Let me know if this is something you would consider. Does this push you a little bit closer to maybe trying a Z Fold or a Z Flip? I'd love to know in the comments down below. So guys, that's all the news I have for you today. Be sure to check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next news radar. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.